All right, friends, it's time to give you loyal listeners a discount on protein powder. You may or may not know, but I launched my very first protein powder 2 years ago. It's a grass-fed beef isolate with only 3 ingredients: grass-fed beef, either organic cacao or organic vanilla, and organic monk fruit. Now, if you don't want any of the added flavor and sweeteners, you can also just get unflavored. And no matter what flavor you choose, you're getting over 23 grams of protein per scoop, which is going to keep you full and satisfied between meals. I love starting my day with a Fab4 smoothie and breaking my fast with that much protein. It makes a serious difference in my cravings and blood sugar balance the rest of the day, and I've seen it with my clients as well. Now, I never thought I'd own a product company, but when I got pregnant with Sebastian, I realized the majority of protein powders were chemically extracted or enzymatically extracted, and I wanted to use heat and water only. I wanted minimal ingredients because we don't need those emulsifiers, fillers, or added vitamins, minerals, and probiotics. All of those additions increase the chances that it's not going to work for your body, whether it be bloating, digestion issues. I just wanted pure, clean protein to keep you full and satisfied so you could build the most delicious Fab4 smoothie. And I have to say, I'm pretty proud of the flavor. If you take a look at our reviews on Amazon, you'll see 5-star reviews for flavor. And that is key, because if you don't love your Fab4 smoothie and you don't love drinking your protein powder, you're not going to do it. It won't become a habit, and it's consistency that outpaces everything. So if you're here and you're listening and you want to give our protein powder a try, use the code PODCAST5 for $5 off your order. And let me know if you love it. My favorite ways to apply this protein powder is in my Fab4 smoothie, making freezer fudge, making chocolate milk, making hot chocolate, and throwing the unflavored into all my kids' baked goods. So let me know how you use it. Let me know if you love it, and share this podcast deal with your friends. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. I'm really excited to syndicate a few personal episodes for this Thanksgiving week. As you know, I'm maybe in labor. I might have a brand new baby, but I am celebrating 2 million downloads of the podcast. And I just wanted to be a little bit more open and honest with each of you. And I've done that in other spaces recently. I shared my birth story with my friend Annie Tevelin on her podcast Off the Record last year. And I shared a little update on 2020 with my friend Kelsey Murphy of Whiskey and Work. So I'm syndicating both of those episodes this week, what I've had to overcome in the last few years to continue to grow my business and my brand. But more importantly, that like many of you, we have a lot of personal things going on that I might not feel comfortable sharing on Instagram, but I want to let you into my life a little bit more. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for continuing to download the Be Well by Kelly podcast, for being a fan, for taking a moment to put a review online, for telling your friends about my book, for sharing your Fab4 smoothie recipes. I'm so ridiculously humbled by our community and by the support that I've received from each of you. And I can't thank you enough for being a part of it. So I hope that the science has touched your life in a positive way, that you feel empowered, and that you know that I'm always here for you. So today's episode, which is Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday, we are going to divert and syndicate an episode of Sebastian's birth story from 2018. This was first recorded with my friend Annie Tevelin of Off the Record. If you haven't heard of her or her podcast, definitely go check it out. It's real heart-to-heart stories and a lot of lessons to be learned. So let's get started.
I mean, it's such an honor. You're so busy. You have such a full plate. Can you kind of walk me through maybe what a day in the life looks like now that you're balancing all the same things you used to balance, but now you're a mom?
Sure. Day in the life. Well, Bash is what we call Sebastian, and he is a little bit of a handful, as babies are, but just the love of my life for sure. And so he, depending on the day, like I told you when I got here, he was up at 3:30, like, let's party. Like, please go back to bed. And I'm doing this thing now because apparently feeding them in the middle of the night during the 3 to 4 month regression is not what you're supposed to do. So now I'm is doing like light sleep training where I walk in and I'm like, "You're okay. Mommy's here. Please stop crying. It's okay." And he'll calm down. And then, 45 minutes later, he's like, "Let's party."
Oh my gosh. And you're up at what time after that kind of a night?
Well, it's pretty funny because I'll feed him for bedtime, and he's in bed by 7, and then I'll stay up and pump at 10, and then I'll go to sleep and I'll wake up and pump at 4. But sometimes he's up before that. So like I've been up since 4
Oh my
because
God.
I pumped and he was sort of up and down and up and down. But he's learning, like every night is better. And we just had 3 weeks where he was sleeping 7 to 7. So it's training. They're learning how to self-soothe and put himself back to bed. But basically the morning starts, he's fed, we do 7 to 7. So he's fed at 7, and they stay up and play for like 30 minutes after they eat. So they're up for like an hour. And then I put him back down at 8. And then it's coffee, smoothie, emails. Or like today I was doing my Zero, which is QuickBooks, a different form of QuickBooks. I was reconciling some things for my tax accountant. And then I went to a couple of clients' houses and measured them and checked in with them because we just have I'm just seeing role related clients right now, people getting ready for a red carpet or for a movie role or something like that, just because it's a little hectic.
And this is all this morning.
Yeah.
And just so everybody knows, it's 11:30 right now in the podcast studio. So all of this has happened in real time before you're coming here.
Yeah. And my car is actually being serviced. I dropped it off last night. So after this is over, I'm going to pump in your bathroom. And I brought my pump and my salad and like some sunflower butter because I've cut some things out because Bash was dealing with eczema, which we'll talk about that because I kind of filled you in on that,
yes.
which is such an interesting story. And after this, I'll head home, and if he's up, which he should be, I'll hang with him, and my husband will have fed him a bottle that I pumped last night. And we'll hang, and then I'll put him down, and babies learn to sleep. So like when they're infants, they're in infant sleep. And so they sleep really well. They'll sleep like 2-hour naps. And I felt like, this parenting thing is so easy, right? And then all of a sudden they wake up, and they're waking up at 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks. And they're like, this world is amazing and so overstimulating and so fun. And then you go to put them down and they only sleep 20 minutes. So you're not getting that time. And because of everything we went through, we decided to wait on getting help because Chris and I both work from home and we have a flexible job. We have flexible jobs. Chris used to be a big corporate mergers, and acquisitions attorney at a firm here in California. And he left to pursue writing, and I left to pursue my nutrition career and my consulting business. And it's crazy. Like,
wow.
We live in our apartment, which I call the tree house.
And where is home?
So we live on Montana and Brentwood.
Okay.
Don't come stalk me. Just kidding.
No, specifically, where is home? Give us the name and the street, and then we'll all report to you for our nutritional
If you
needs.
would like to find me, I'm somewhere on San Vicente, probably in the Whole Foods on San Vicente, or the Erewhon on Wilshire, or
people are writing this down.
Cafe
I'm sure.
Lux. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So every day is
go on.
different, but basically it's a mix between calls with clients, in-persons with clients, meetings with business owners about collaborations. I have some cool things in the works. I'm a spokesperson now for 2 brands, which I never had branded deals up until just recently, but they're 2 brands that I've used for probably 6 years, and finally was like, hey, I've been talking about you on Instagram for a really long time. And by the way, my following has grown. So can we like talk about maybe a paid sort of situation? Yes. And I don't want it to be like one post for this amount. Like I want you to pay me for the entire year. And I don't want you to tell me how many times I have to post about it.
You're like, I'm already invested.
Yeah.
So
like I'm in
easy.
and you've already seen like benefits from it. And so that's with Primal Kitchen and Now Food. So I have some cool videos that I'm going to be taping with them. So I have to like sometime this week, like basically write the scripts for those. I'm meeting with the CEO of Beauty Counter tomorrow. Like,
amazing.
It's just like random things that I say yes to when I feel inspired. And it's so funny that your intro was like, why would she meet with me? Well, because when it came through and I went to your Instagram, you looked like a lot of fun and you looked like the real deal. And also, by the way, you're a female entrepreneur who started this company. And I can imagine when people say, oh, it's an overnight success, or she just came out of nowhere. And like, how do you have thousands of people following on Instagram, or how did you create this product? And you're like, this is years of life that I spent doing this. And then I hit a tipping point and people started to hear about it and
Absolutely.
learn about it.
I mean, that's like, none of this happened overnight. None of it. And I've had a publicist was the first person I hired 5 years ago. And it's still, it's a marriage. I say this all the time. It's not a one night stand. People need to see a product or a person or someone doing something behaviorally several times before they are even invested in it.
Totally.
Before they even buy it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, long story short, every single day is different. Some days Bash sleeps for 2 hours and I clear my inbox and have a call and like hit a workout class and I feel like a superwoman. And some days he goes down for 20 minutes and I don't get a workout and I'm eating what my husband calls cat food, which is canned salmon and chopped Persian cucumbers, like olive oil or primal mayo. And I do all my work at 7 p.m. between 7 and 10 when I put him down and pump.
Right. And then what time does your head hit the pillow?
Right after I pump. So 10:30. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I want to, there's so much to you and there's so much that I want to ask you. And I do want to go back to one thing that you said, which was, the birth story. It started off on a different page than maybe you thought it was going to start off on. And I saw you posted about the birth of your son on Instagram 10 days after his birth. So creepy. I mean, I know all of this because this is what happens when you voyeur someone on the internet. You're like 10 days after their birth, you posted this on Instagram. While many people would have rushed to post about the birth of their son, your first few weeks took you on quite an adventure. You had other priorities, I would say. To quote your Instagram post, within seconds of his birth, our sweet baby boy was rushed to the NICU with dad at his side as I laid there and sobbed. After recovery, I was rolled into a postpartum room and asked to approve his transfer to the NICU at Children's Hospital LA. I hadn't held him. I hadn't been given the chance to look deep into those sweet eyes or tell him I loved him. There was only a fleeting moment of skin to skin and no blissful first feed. But there was no question. My answer was yes. Now we're both sitting here kind of in tears because it's so beautiful and it's so real. And I'm so proud of you for being able to communicate through something like that and giving people the opportunity to relate to you. Cause I can't even imagine how many people, I know 3 people myself who have gone through something like that. So, can you take me back to that moment and what that fear stirred up inside of you?
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, I want to preface this with saying that I had a really, beautiful pregnancy. I don't think a lot of people know this. I maybe said it on one of the podcasts, but I got pregnant the first time on my first book tour that August. And, I miscarried at 7 weeks. So it was very early. And then Chris and I got pregnant when we were cleared to try again. We get pregnant pretty quickly. I got pregnant in January. And I was tired. I had a little bit of cravings and nausea, but I was able to eat pretty clean and work out. And I was, I'd get through those as a geriatric pregnancy, right? 35. You get through those milestones of your nuchal and your genetic testing. And, we were starting to get really excited and we had our girl name and our boy name. And I was getting towards my due date and I was thinking about what I wanted. And I really wanted a natural delivery if I could do it. But I'm the kind of person that knows how to pivot. Like if something isn't working for me, I pivot. And I'm not married to an idea. If it doesn't work out, I move on. And I think that's something that I've done in my career. When things just aren't working, I'll pivot and move on. And I won't try to stick with something just because I put time into it or really thought it was the right idea. Right. And so we passed my due date. Our due date was October 4th and he was born on the 16th. So he was 12 days late. And I was going to be induced the night I went into labor so I went into labor at 8:30 a.m. on the 15th and I was supposed to be induced that night at 11:30 p.m. My doctor was like, look, this enough is enough. Like you're almost at 42 weeks. You need to be induced. And I agreed with her, but I wanted the chance for my body to kick in on its own because there's something called pit pain, which is when Pitocin makes your contractions really strong and then it hurts a little bit more and it's a lot harder to go without an epidural. And my whole reason for wanting to go without the epidural was I wanted to feel it. I wanted to experience it. I wanted to see if I could do it. I wanted to be able to move around. I played soccer. I've always been pretty active. I feel like I have a pretty high pain tolerance. But pain is perceived in the brain. And if there's fear, pain can be higher. And so, I tried to do all the things, read all the books before I was going to deliver about the empowerment of like women being able to do this for eons. And anyways, I went into labor and I labored at home without drugs for 12 hours. So from 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. And my contractions were then 2 minutes apart. And I had a doula. I'm not going to name names about my doula or my doctor or anything like that. Everyone loves me very much, and no one wanted what happened, and I just don't really want to do that. Yeah, so my water hadn't broken, but I basically labored all day. And at the end there, like what I didn't realize I was in transition, and it felt like 5 minutes when I look back. Like hours felt like minutes. And I guess I was asking to go to the hospital, and they were like, "You're fine." Chris, my husband, and funny story, he was like heating me bone broth, and I was in the bath and it burned. So I was like, "What is that smell?" And it was like literally burning Le Creuset pads. And he's like, "Shit, fuck, ah!" And I'm like in the bath, like moaning. And he's like, I can like see smoke billowing into a bathroom in our small apartment. But they take me to the hospital, and I read all the things. So I'm wearing the eye mask and the robe, and I like Bose headphones, so I can't hear anything. So they roll me in through the hospital, because if you're in that state and then you see all these people and like the ER, some kids has a broken arm, and they're trying to check you in and they want your information, you can get into your frontal lobes. You can start thinking you're not in that primal mind, and really wanted to stay there. And so we got into the room and they pulled everything off me and they checked me, and I was 7 centimeters dilated with a bulging bag. And the nurses started cheering, and they go, "Turn on the baby warmer. She's having this baby tonight." And I just started bawling. Like I was so excited, because I had like worked so hard for that. And
you took your time.
I took my time, and I was like, "I fucking got this," And so, Chris and my doula were like doing the moves. And at one point I'm like, bending over the bed, and you're feeling the contractions. And I really like transition is just fucking hard. Like it hurts a lot and it's scary. And I don't think that I was as prepared as I wanted to be. I did hypnobirthing, but I couldn't get into that place. Like I could manhandle the pain to where I was there. But when I was like bending over and they put like, cause I was moving and I didn't have the epidural, I could actually see like fluid and blood like dripping out onto the floor. And so that was starting to like hit me and get scary. And, anyways, fast forward 4 hours, and, they had checked me one time between, and, I was still exactly the same. So I had labored for another like 2.5 hours, and they're like, "You're 7 centimeters dilated with a bulging bag, and you're not pushing through this." And earlier that day I had seen on Instagram, like literally probably an hour before I went into labor, some girl said, "I was stuck at 7 centimeters for 15 hours, went into an emergency C-section, basically got stuck in transition because of fear," right? That happens. And so I think it got in my head, because I don't remember, but I guess I looked at Chris and I said, "I don't want to get stuck here." And so you have to be really careful. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, you are not going to get stuck there. Like, it's just not going to happen, because I eventually progressed. But here's what I will tell you. There are different ways to learn how to have a natural birth. I think you should explore all of them. And I really think you need to put in the time. Like, I think I thought I put in the time, but I probably could have put in way more time in classes and learning how to deal with it and understanding, there are different ways to do it. And, anyways, so when they checked me about halfway through that 4-hour period, basically between 8:30 and 12:30, they checked me and I was still the same. But when they were checking me, my bag broke, and the water like went everywhere. And that was the most, and it's so crazy when I think about it, that was the most amazing feeling in the entire world. Like you just feel life like coming.
Yeah, it's the beginning.
Like it's coming for you, And so, so I thought for sure, okay, that's going to kick things up. And it kicked things up to the point where I was convulsing, shaking, vomiting, grabbing the side of the bed. And I was like, I looked at my husband and I was like, if I'm not progressing, like I can't. And like, I need to pivot. And he just looked at me and he goes, baby, whatever we need to do, you know, cause at the whole day, you know, up to the 16-hour mark, he was like, you got this. And I was like, I just need to talk to the doctor. And so she came in and she had been there the whole time, like since I got there, coming in and checking on me. And she goes, Kelly, like, you need strength to push. And like, how much do you really want this? And I was like, I just want a healthy baby and I want to know that he's okay. Or I didn't know it was he. She's like, okay, let's do the epidural if you want to. And I was like, yeah, I want to. I need to get out of this pain. And so I got the epidural at 1 a.m. And then I kind of like slept back and forth on a peanut ball overnight. And I want to say that like his heart did not decel at all. So that shows that the baby's in stress or trauma. There was no deceleration in his heart rate at all. Nothing that would say that he needed to go to an emergency C-section or anything like that. So the next morning I started pushing and I pushed for almost 4 hours. And
how did you feel when you woke up? Like you're in and out of sleep. Did you wake up and you felt rested? Did you feel like, all right, I'm kind of a little bit more optimistic?
I felt rested. I felt ready. I felt excited. I was with it. I was in my frontal lobes. I was thinking about it. She checked me. I was 10 centimeters dilated. They were ready to rock and roll. And so I actually started pushing at 10 a.m., which is kind of a long time, 9 hours, but not excessively long. And that was a question, you know, I've had people be like, oh, why did she not come back sooner? You were basically 8 when you got the epidural. And I don't question that. I had a long conversation with her. There's people that are on epidurals for 48 hours, you know, and with the time my bag broke and everything, this has nothing to do with that. Like Bash was totally fine until I started pushing. And so I pushed for almost 4 hours. And the reason why I pushed for that long is because we saw his head within 20 minutes. So he was there. He was low. Like I saw a chiropractor. I saw an acupuncturist. I did mom Pilates. I did yoga. I saw a perineum PT, which is like pelvic floor PT before my pregnancy, like 2 or 3 times. I did everything for this child and didn't have a sip of wine, like barely ate anything bad, was thinking about how all that food was creating his cells. But he was almost 9 pounds. And when he came out, he was like lifeless. And what they did is my doctor, it felt like they put him on me and then they pulled him right off and they took him to the baby heater and someone hit an alarm and there were 20 people in the room and my husband was hyperventilating. And,
are you like feeling it in the moment or
no,
are you just,
I'm
like,
looking at him and I'm like, it's
out?
okay. Because I was with my best friend in her delivery at St. John's. Her son came out and he had like, basically like mucus or like bacteria in his throat from coming down her canal and he couldn't breathe. And they put a little tube down and pulled it out and he cried and everything was fine. So I look at my husband at this point. I go, it's okay, baby. This happened to Micah. Like, we're going to be fine. He's going to be fine, you know? And, he's just like crying. And then I'm like, what's wrong? And so they have like a little oxygen mask and I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. I've just seen the top of his head. And I'm like, is it a boy or a girl? And they're like, and Chris was like, it's a boy. And they're like, we have to take him to the NICU right now. And Chris was like, what do I do? And I'm like, you go. And so Chris went to the NICU with him and I just felt numb.
Is that in the same place where you are?
Yeah, you get into the room and that's
Okay.
your delivery room.
But like the NICU, like your husband leaves with your child.
Yeah, they're rolling Bash out and Chris is following and I'm laying there and I have some pictures that people that are taken of me after and my eyes are stinging, burning. Like I look like because I pushed for so long, every capillary on my face is actually broken and I don't have any whites in my eyes left. It's all blood. And I would say that I look like I've had like, I don't know, like I've had some crazy kind of fight. I basically was black and blue for 4 days after that delivery. And yeah. And so I couldn't get up because I'd had the epidural and, you know, it was crazy because I was expecting to like, he's so big, but, I had like one stitch. I had TMI. I had a stitch and, had to lay there, and then they're like, okay, we're going to roll you into your postpartum room. And so Chris comes back and he's there. He's like fine. And they're just checking him out. And, I'm going to go tell our parents because they've been waiting. I'm going to go tell our parents like that they'll have to come later because after he's cleared and he comes to you in postpartum, we'll do our skin to get skin and you can feed him. And it'll probably be like, he was born in the 1 o'clock hour. And I'm like, he'll probably, they won't be able to visit till like 5 or 6. So I'm going to go just tell him to chill or go back to our apartment or go get food or something. I'm like, okay. And so then
the state, just to interrupt, the state of your health, aside from the broken capillaries and the exhaustion and like that kind of trauma, you're good. Like
I'm adrenaline. Like my adrenaline is pumping. I'm just thinking about Bash.
Okay.
And then my phone rings and I pick it up and it's, they say, is this the mother of baby boy LeVeque? And I said, yes. And they said, we need your approval we need your immediate approval for the transfer of your son to Children's Hospital, Los Angeles. Do we have your immediate approval? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, your son needs further evaluation. We need to take him to CHLA immediately. Do we have your approval? We need to send transfer. And I was like, yes. And I'm saying yes. And I'm bawling. And Chris walks back in like, what's happening? And then I hang up the phone and I tell him that they need to have him be transferred. And at this point, we don't know what the problem is because when Chris came back to tell me, he's like, he has a little bruise on the back of his head. They just want to make sure it's not a hematoma. He had meconium. So they wanted to make sure it wasn't, a meconium aspiration. Like if they breathe, that means they pooped inside. If they suck that into their lungs and cause infection, they wanted to make sure that wasn't an issue. So I'm thinking, okay, 20% of births are born with meconium. When I was first started pushing, there was no sign of it. So it happened towards the end of my pushing. It hurt obviously to like birth this child, and he was being pushed a lot. So I'm not surprised that he has a cone head and like a bruise. I want to get that checked out too, but like, why is he being transferred? And I went to St. John's because it's a community hospital. It's where my doctor delivers. It's really beautiful rooms, but I didn't think that I'd ever have a problem. Like, I'm a healthy person. I had a really healthy pregnancy. I didn't even get a glucose test because I tested my glucose for like 2 weeks before and showed my doctor my full chart of glucose. So I didn't have to I opted out of the glucose test. There were things that I did specifically for him to not have any issues. And what we were finally told when Chris got in the ambulance and went with him, which I got to see him for 30 seconds. Like, I was rolled in a wheelchair to the room when they were poking him and putting like things in his body, tubes everywhere, to put him in a transfer box to be basically put in an ambulance and taken to Silver Lake. And all I got to do, and he was at this point, they had given him morphine to numb him so that he wasn't screaming the whole way to CHLA, is I got to basically lean over the box and I wanted to crawl inside and basically like try to hold my baby and see his face for the first time. So that's like, it was like the best and worst day of my entire life. Like,
I'm sitting here and I'm like, the presence of mind and the bravery that you have to be able to, I mean, not that it was that long ago. I mean, it's February. He was born in October.
Yeah.
I'm sure it feels like a blip on the radar of time because of how, meaningful that day was. But, now, I mean, the beautiful kind of ending to this is, yes, there was even more adventure after that and some ups and downs. But now, I mean, you're the mother of a true champion and a true survivor. And, you take one glimpse on Instagram and you see how stunningly gorgeous and happy and, like well-adjusted your son is. And, and you've worked so hard in your life. And there's been things, I think, that like, when you work hard, you have a certain amount of control over the things that happen to you and like how you're going to present yourself and the things that you're going to go after. And then you're the epitome of health and you have this healthy pregnancy. And then you're kind of tested by God or the universe in your birth story in a way that you never thought that you would be tested. Now that you sit here now and it's this memory and it's this thing that you will always have in your life and nobody will ever be able to take that story from you and that experience and that trauma. But you sit here now with like the whole, the world is your and your son and your husband's oyster. What is the takeaway from all of that? What piece have you been able to give to that story?
You aren't in control. Like, you can do all the things and you aren't in control and you aren't immune to problems that can arise. And no matter how hard you try, life is a gift and it can be taken from you in seconds. And I know we talked about this right before we got on, but I did a hypnobirthing class. I wouldn't probably ever give birth in a birthing center, but that's because I spent 8 years in and out of hospitals. And I have a fear around that. And I think fear, if you have fear around anything going wrong, you shouldn't go that route because you have to have no fear. You have to really be in a place, and I hadn't put in the work to be in a place to deliver there. That being said, when I did get to CHLA NICU, the babies that were there were premature and late birth center babies. And Bash was a late hospital baby. But what the nurses told me there and the stories they told me, I don't know, like, I'm really natural, I'm really holistic, and it just makes me sad. It makes me sad and I'm processing it on the microphone right now. Like, yes. Because I don't want, if people want that, I want that for them, but I also don't want you to think that that this couldn't happen to you. And I think you need to look at and weigh the pros and cons and know if Bash was born in a birth center and we didn't have the support that we had and he wasn't, I don't know what would have happened.
So I'm sitting here and I'm thinking by the time this episode goes live, I will have announced to friends and even more family members and, the friends on Instagram that, I am pregnant. And
love that you just shared that.
I know. I within 5 minutes of her walking in, I was like, I need to tell you something because I'm at 12 weeks right now. I'm ending my first trimester. And obviously I'm 38 years old. We have a very, there's some similarities between us. I miscarried last year at 7 weeks. I got pregnant and found out I was pregnant in January. We have very similar birth, due dates. And, so much of, I haven't been very privy to it. And this is kind of a question that I want to ask you based on, you've been so open and I can't imagine anybody would have an adverse reaction to hearing your story. But already, the kind of the mother's brigade steps out and starts telling you what you should do and what kind of birth you should have. And then the vaccines and the autism and the glucose test and some of, the epidural and all of these things and what to eat and what not to eat. And people have been giving birth for hundreds and thousands of years and have been eating sprouts that they found in somewhere or peanuts, right? That's the new one. Everybody's telling me not to eat peanuts. So there's all of these things. And I think coming away from your story and coming away from what you experienced, have you experienced anybody who's kind of well, maybe you shouldn't have done that? Or maybe you shouldn't. Yeah. Has there been any shaming because of the amount of people that have access to you?
Oh, yeah. And that's the reason why I didn't share that Bash was even born was because Chris and I were in it. When he got to CHLA, we were basically told he was actually sent here because he had a low APGAR. And I'm like, well, no shit, he had a low APGAR. He came out and he wasn't breathing. So the fact that he had an APGAR of 6 and not 7, which is the cutoff, if he had an APGAR of 7, he wouldn't have been sent to CHLA if he had an APGAR, but he had an APGAR of 6. And that's after he woke up basically or cried. And they're like, well, we were worried about CNS issues, so central nervous system issues. And so what they needed to check for was his brain. And so we spent almost 6 days not knowing if our son had brain damage, cerebral palsy, would have a feeding tube until he was like 60, would die early. And the things we would talk about, it would be like, I'd be having a good day and I'd be like, baby, like maybe this is our story. Like maybe we need to tell the world, like we've been really blessed. Maybe we need to show the world how this, how to parent. And, Chris is a big golf fan. So, he's, Jordan Spieth's sister is handicapped, and he's like, well, Jordan Spieth, that his sister is a light of their family, and like we're, whatever, whoever Bash is, like if he doesn't walk till he's 6, like he walks at 6, I'm going to celebrate that. If he never can surf with me, I'm going to celebrate that. Like, and so we were in it, and that's why we didn't share. It wasn't about not telling people what was going on. It was that I could give 2 flying fucks about Instagram. Mm-hmm. Because that was not what my life was about at that moment. And, and so when people come to me after and they're like, why didn't I saw a therapist for like a hot minute who was like, I'm really surprised that your doctor didn't come back for 9 hours. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm paying you to help me move through the PTSD of feeling like this was my fault. And I'm asking you to help me by telling me that like my son isn't going to have connecting issues or emotional issues because I didn't hold him minutes after he was born and he was alienated. Like I am paying you to help me integrate this story into my life and know how to talk about it, not question and put doubts in my mind about what actually happened.
Yeah, you're adding to the things that I now need to potentially overanalyze.
Right. And so when it comes to someone coming up to you and saying like, why didn't your doctor do this? Or why didn't they take you to a C-section? Or why didn't they give you an episiotomy? Or, the laundry list goes on. You just have to know, like, you are making the most educated decision with the information that you have and the experience that like you're trying your best. And you know what? I think the best advice I can give moms is to try and not listen to a lot of people, but really pick those really trusted sources of people that you love and let them be the little lights on your path, because too many people, too many lights, and you're blinded and you can't see. You just need people to help you find your way. And those people need to feel right. And I'm also going to give other moms, like, I just would never tell someone like, you should do this or you should do that. I'm just telling you from my experience, this is what I went through. And I wish I knew what I know now about how a healthy baby is a blessing. A healthy baby is not easy. It doesn't happen to everyone. It's just not, you get pregnant, you don't just have a healthy baby. And I think I wish I was a little bit more in tune with what could go wrong. And but here's the deal. Now I think about having a second child, because the minute you get to know your son or daughter, whoever that little peanut of love, joy in your belly is. And if you think about having a second, like, I got to know Bash and I was like, I want 10 of you. Like, and I've always wanted a lot of kids, and I don't know if I'm too old for it. I'm going to try my best to have as many as I can, but it's the most special thing in the entire world, and no way of doing it is right or wrong. You just try your best.
You know what? So for so many years too, before social media, people weren't talking about these things. These were things that were happening privately amongst couples, and this data was existing amongst their family. People weren't even talking about miscarriages. When I went in for my D&C, my nurse, my doctor, everybody was like, oh, girl, I miscarried. And then I had 2 kids, and then I miscarried again. And then I had another one. Like you, I was ill-educated in terms of what a blessing it is to have a child, how hard it is to have a healthy child, and how common miscarriages are. And it doesn't mean that that you shouldn't have gone on that plane ride, or that you ate the wrong thing, or that your body is a mess because it's a chromosomal issue. Like, yeah. It happens. It's common. There's nothing wrong with you. It's a part of life. In order to bring a living, breathing soul into this world, it takes a myriad of things to happen. And all of those things have to go right.
Yeah.
And sometimes the odds are against you. I think I listened to all of these things, and now you're returning back to the work that you were doing. You know, you're writing books. You obviously have all of these clients, and you're gifting people this amazing, the knowledge that you have in terms of nutrition, which is vast, and you are hungry for that information. And it's, I can see what your X factor is, but going through what you've gone through and now returning back to the same career, what is your X factor in your eyes now after experiencing that?
I'm just more empathetic. I have had a really blessed life. And when I think about the things that have hurt me on the way, like I have a really close-knit family. I have two really amazing younger sisters, and my parents have been married for over 40 years. And I had a really easy childhood. And when I think about the first time I was hurt, like a college boyfriend, that I think, wow, I didn't really take advantage of college because I was wrapped up in the pain of this relationship and obsession over this guy and losing myself over it. And I used to look back after, a few years after we broke up finally, and and when you say a breakup with someone who you fall in love with the first time, I mean, it might be months of breaking up over and over again or whatever. But when those ties were finally cut, and a couple years went by and I met Chris, and then I think like, well, the reason that happened to me is so that I could meet Chris, because I wouldn't have picked Chris, really academic. He's a sporty guy and he played soccer and stuff, but I just had a different type, and so, but he's my perfect match. And I needed to kind of come back to myself for that. But I used to look back and say, well, that's the only thing that really went wrong. And that's really bad. You should never think about the things that go wrong and tally those things up in your life, because you're living in the past. Like you're looking in that rearview mirror going like, okay, I hit a speed bump there and a speed bump there. You don't count the speed bumps. Like you have to like look in your windshield, and you can only see how far in front of you, and it's not like I told a client, if you're driving from LA to New York, and this is the journey of like your wellness journey or your weight loss journey, you got to stop thinking about what it's going to look like in New York. Like you can think about New York, but what you need to focus on is like what you can see through your windshield when it's light, when it's dark. Because if your lights are on and it's dark, you can literally only see 100 yards, and you can get to New York by only seeing and making decisions about the next 100 yards. And it's almost better to make those little educated decisions about that next 100 yards. But the worst thing you can do is like look in the rearview mirror and like count the wrong turns you made or the speed bumps, or because it's not a straight, right? It's not a straight path, and you are going to have things that go wrong. And not to say that I like needed another thing to go wrong. I don't think that this is meant to be. Like, I think when people say this, oh, that really shitty relationship you had in college, that was meant to be, no, I did make a decision, and I did fall in love with Chris, and I learned from that. And I think you can learn from things. I don't think bad things are ever meant to be for people. You can't say someone who has cancer, that's meant to be. Like, I think that I feel bad for that person, and I have empathy for that person. I want to support that person. And, but I'm learning from this. Like I'm learning from this. I'm learning how to talk to people differently. I'm softer. I cry more,
Yeah.
stuff like that. But, here's what I will tell you. Every single hour and minute waiting for tests to find out waiting for his MRI. He didn't get his MRI until the Saturday after he was born. So we waited, not knowing what was going on with our son and the state of his brain and the state of his body. He was given antibiotics. He was given antivirals. He was given morphine. He was given dopamine. He was, and I think about it and I'm just like, his gut microbiome, his skin microbiome, his, like his little body, like, they were like, if there's any seizure activity, we're going to give him phenobarbital. Phenobarbital is one of the most, one of the drugs out there that people get addicted to, like opioids. I'm like, he's a 9-pound human. He just got here. Why are we doing this? But here's the deal. I wanted my son to be alive. I didn't want, if he was having seizures, I didn't want any brain damage. If he did have meningitis, I wanted him to be treated. If he, it was like an episode of House. He got to the CHLA and they were like, let's just do all the things. And you make the best decisions that you can in that environment. I didn't have the time to get on the internet and research and figure it out. I had to trust other people. And I was looking at my next 100 yards and that was like, I would like to bring my son home healthy and happy, and whatever we have to do in the next 20 minutes or 2 hours or 24 hours to do that, we're going to do that.
Well, and the reality is that you're experiencing this for the first time. The doctors, unfortunately, have experienced this all the times. So it's like you don't have their context and they don't have yours. So you're seeing like, this is a small little human. We're putting all these things inside of it. That just doesn't sound right. Like, and in the business that you're in, right? You're kind of taught to clear your body of all of these toxins and maybe there's another way, but it's like in the moment, what are you going to do? Say no? That's where faith and trust come in. And you've just got to say, I don't know what I would do. I don't have the expertise of like what to do in this scenario. If they think that this is what's going to be the best thing, I have to believe.
You have to have trust. Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. It's an incredible story. And it's like, I can't imagine how that has changed you and made you, this is what I will say. I was, I prior to my current marriage, I was married and divorced. And my therapist at the time, I was sitting with her and much like you, I'm like, I feel like I've had a really sheltered, blessed life. Like if I was to look at my future, I didn't think that this was going to happen to me. And I'll never forget it. She looked me in the eye and she said, Annie, this has made you a more well-rounded person. Not that you need it, like it's not meant to be, God forbid these things, like it's, life is fair and you're given an equal amount of things that you can champion and an equal amount of challenges. But to be gifted the opportunity to be more well-rounded is
to learn, to have depth,
to relate to people, right? Someone else has this story. You're now able to sit down with them and talk to them about this and help someone through it. And that's one of the best things that you can be given in life is a well-roundedness and an experiential gain in a sense, and just to be able to enrich your life, even if it means that you had to go through hell and back. It's crazy to think about.
I've been there and I've been there and I've survived, and you can too.
And I love that. And I feel like anybody listening to the story, if they're not crying with you, they're taking something from it. And now maybe there's more questions for their doctors. I mean, I've learned so much just listening to this. So, I mean, I thank you for your honesty and the bravery it takes to be able to deliver something like that story. You've with all of this education and kind of the shifting of, the medical field and kind of the Fortune 500 companies, and then taking matters into your own hands and starting your own company, you have, it's like, how else do you say this? You have access to people that a lot of people with your job don't have access to. And you've been able to work and speak on and, Kathy Lee and Hoda. And there's like all of these amazing experiences on your resume. What do you attribute to your success? Like when you think about like, I'm here talking with these people, and right, they're all human. It's like, you know them as human beings. Most of the world sees them as celebrities, but you have been given the opportunity to work with people that could choose anyone. What do you attribute to your success and how you got to where you are today?
I think a couple of things. I would say fearlessness, and I'll touch on that. Definitely positivity and passion. So the positivity and passion part, it's like, I've always loved health and nutrition. I want it. I'm hungry for it. I want to learn more. And I think I never had fear hold me back. I was just like, yeah, I can go do that. Yeah, I'll say yes to that. Oh, you want me to be on a stage in a panel? Sure. Why not? And you know what's really interesting is now that I'm getting to this place where I have a following that I never thought I would have, like it all just sort of happened. I don't want to say it happened to me, because I was just, it's like that book, The Secret. Like I just believed that I could be whatever I wanted to be. And I just kept saying yes to things and coming just with all the fire and passion that I had and being myself. And it's interesting because now with this platform, it's scary. Like I'm like, wait, because I have jumped into DMs where someone's like, you don't know what the heck you're talking about, or like, you're killing animals, or like, that's wrong, or did you see this? And there's a lot of hate and negativity in DMs. I have, equally those positive things. So going back to that rear view mirror thing, it's like, I don't really go into DM anymore, because if maybe I do, I'll kind of scroll through and be like, okay, do I recognize any of these handles? And then randomly I'll have someone like, be like, all caps, you see the beginning of love and you're like, I'll open that. And they're like, I love the Fat Four smoothie, and like, this is what happened to me, and that's why I feel so great. And I'll try to absorb that positivity, but it's a little bit harder now with the platform and with the opportunities you're given, because every level of your life requires a bigger and better version of yourself. And when you start to realize that and realize where you're at and kind of wake up in this, I basically woke up in this world, probably I would say this January, being like, I'm getting a second callback for the Today Show this month. And that's really, really, that's actually scary. Like, that makes me want to pee my pants. Like, this isn't just like, oh yeah, totally, like 24 hours in New York. And maybe I need to share that a little bit more, because yeah, like I'm sweating on this podcast. Like, I have to wear dark colors on those shows because the armpit marks are to my waist. My bra is drenched. I smell like a banshee. Like, I'm like an animal. I'm like a boys' locker room by the end of that stuff. And I'm so grateful and I'm so thankful. But it is interesting, because now I have to be in a place where I have to think and force myself to not be afraid, and to force myself with the realization of what sort of has happened and unfolded over the last, now almost 8 years. Wait, 2012 to 2019.
Oh my God. Yeah. 7 years.
Seven, almost 8. 7 years is just kind of, be like, wait.
Is the anxiety of it worse than the actuality? Like the build to the Today Show, for example, the sweat, the pit stains and all the stuff.
Yeah,
but like when you're
like
actually
fun.
on the stage, are you like,
you don't think about it.
It goes away.
You're just like, oh my gosh, Hoda wants to know about zoodles. Sweet.
We're going to talk about zoodles.
Let's talk about zucchini noodles. Let's talk about how flax meal replaces breadcrumbs in turkey meatballs. Okay, great.
You're like, this is easy.
Yeah. It's weird because I never have had anxiety. And it's so funny because I remember meeting some of my celebrity clients and talking to them, and a large number of them have anxiety. And I always used to think, like, you have it all figured out. You have billions of dollars in the bank. You have all these movie deals. You have these big companies, like you're writing scripts, or your shows are being picked up. You just sold your makeup company for $1 billion, like whatever it is. But it's the platform. It's that your life requires so much more of you, and all of these people are now requiring so much more of you, and you have to decide what's worth it, what's not worth it. You have to check your priorities, and you have to silence the negativity. You have to silence the negativity when you're pregnant and a mom, and someone says like, this didn't go right. Like, if you are pregnant and you're listening to this podcast, like, Annie, delete what I said. You're going to have a beautiful delivery. Like, and that's something that I will say, like, at first, after that delivery, I was like, I'm never having any more kids. Then I was like, I'm having children via planned C-sections at 38 weeks. And by the way, that would have been okay given my experience. I'm now to a place where I'm like, if on my due date, the child has not arrived, I will be induced, and I will get an epidural, and I will try my best for a vaginal birth. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to pivot.
Yep.
And so as I work through it, I'm opening up to what Bash's little brothers and sisters will be and how they will be delivered if they can, God willing, if they can come, And so that's the kind of thing where it's like, that's what you think about in life is it's the same thing. It's like, you have to be forgiving you have to forgive yourself, and you have to be gentle with yourself, and anxiety is okay. But you have to have that voice inside of you that's like, all right, we don't have time for this. Like, I posted a quote the other day that was like, when your inner voice is telling you you're not, your body composition is good enough, your skin isn't clear enough, you're not sharing enough, you're not doing good enough, you're not answering emails fast enough, you're not being a good enough mom. I mean, you have all these balls in the air. Of course, some are going to be on the floor. But you just have to try your best and be gentle with yourself, and you have to silence that bitch.
Mm-hmm. That's the name of the podcast, the episode. Silence that bitch. And then people are going to be like, that's an awful way to talk to Kelly. And I'll be like, no, it was something she said. I'm not talking about her.
I feel like I'm talking like a truck driver. I'm so sorry.
Good. There's so much cussing and trust me.
I just made you explicit.
My engineer's nickname is Fart Storm. There's the class factor for the podcast went way down as of episode 5. So I'm just putting that out there.
I would like for them to put horns, bells, and whistles over all my cuss words because that's what I do in my comments. Like I want to say those things and then I'll be like asterisk, exclamation point.
You're very on brand for us. Okay. You're very on brand.
Okay.
I just had this whole thought and then you said something and it was, obviously because the stress and the pressure and the opportunities, which in anybody else's life would be like, oh my God, goals, dreams, what a dream life. But at the end of the day, when you're living it and it's like your real time and you're going through all of these opportunities, like making money, for example, can be stressful because it separates you from the friends or the people that aren't making that money. And so now you're spending your time doing something differently or you're not, but people think that you are, right? There's like the road to success and the road to being known is a tough one now. And it's the toughest it's ever been because there's no assumption. People can actually take a glimpse in and collect all the data and then make assumptions about your life. If let's say tomorrow, all your clients were like, no, you know what? We're good. I think we're good. Maybe you're pregnant again, maybe you're not, but just it's just all good, right? Or you're able to sell your business or just tomorrow your entire office burst into flames and there's just no more Be Well by Kelly. What would you do? Is there ever a part of you that's just like, man, I wish I could just open a dog rescue? Is there ever a part of you that, and it doesn't mean, and for anybody listening, I have these days all the time with Skin Owl where I'm like, fuck, I love what I'm doing. I love my job. I feel like my team they're my family. They're the best people ever to come into my life, right? But there are days, and it's a normal fucking thing to happen where you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too much stress. It's too much pressure. I'm in charge of, however many people's paychecks. I used to process my life and have a stillness and pause and this wanting to achieve and ambition and wanting to leave a mark on the world. You have to compromise. There's a lot of things you have to leave behind on that road. And I think sometimes there's little daydreams that come in where it's like, what else? If I just could let it all go, what would I do? And maybe that's where the podcast came in. Maybe there's other portals of things that I could see myself doing. What are those things for you?
That's a great question. And I'm going to start by saying that I think people think that I lead a bigger life than I do. I remember even just recently when Sebastian was born, I had some of my clients come to my apartment. So Chris and I have lived in the same apartment since 2000 and we got married in 2011, November, December 2011. And we both left big 6-figure careers where our combined income was about $500,000. And we left that all for me to be an hourly employee at $50 an hour in the first, couple months of my job and him leaving his big attorney salary on the table to write. So I was paying his student loans. I was paying our rent. We sold one of our cars. We got a truck from my dad's tow yard. So my dad has a towing company. So we had a little crappy Toyota Tacoma that we drove around that we shared that had a wire coming out of the front, where the tape deck was. There was a tape deck in this car. And so when you talk about all my clients leaving and going away, I think, and my team, I had a fake assistant for 3 years. And then I got a virtual assistant. So Stephanie's real. If you're hearing from her, she lives in Texas. I won't give you her exact address. I have a couple people helping me when I get those questionnaires and I have to write articles where I'll send them some studies and I'll do a call because it's a lot easier for me to talk than it is for me to write. And people know this about me and grammar, spelling, it sucks. My husband is the writer. So we run a really lean ship and we're successful in that we're both following our dreams. And just in the last, I would say since 2016, when my book came out. And a book doesn't make you a lot of money. It's not about the book making me money. It I received visibility, which really continued to fill my schedule and give me brand opportunities, grow my Instagram, things of that nature. That then, we've been able to replace that type of an income. We're still not even to where we were, really 6 years ago. So when I think about giving everything up, like I already did that. Like I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing, and I don't hate a minute of it, which is really a blessing. I know that there are a lot of people out there that feel the way I feel about health and wellness, and what I would say to them is like, keep trying and, do what you can. I mean, we have the ability that we sort of have a rent controlled situation in our apartment. But when Bash was born and my big celebrity clients were like, hey, we want to come visit your house. Like, they don't know I live in an apartment. Okay.
You're like, honey, rent the Airbnb. Get it. Go get online.
How funny would that be? They're just a little bit of a reality check for them. And when they, I'm like, here's the gate code to my, the PIN number box, and you're going to come up. LA is an expensive place to live. Like if we were anywhere else, we could afford a home, and we had big careers before that. We saved a lot. We're very smart financially and things of that nature. But I also love where I live, and I wouldn't just like move and no offense to the Valley, but somewhere where I could afford a home just to like have a house.
Yeah.
And so we're waiting. But I will say things that I love to do. I love to motivate and mentor other people. I think that that's something that I'm not doing enough of. And maybe that's why I want to start my podcast, which I'm starting to kind of figure out how to do that, because interviewing my friends, it's like they're telling their story and stuff. But I'm like, how am I motivating the people listening? I have to figure that out. We're working on that. And I love yoga, and I taught yoga. But when I taught yoga, I didn't do it. And then I sort of resented it because I wasn't actually practicing as much. But that's also because I still had my corporate cancer job and was side hustling my nutrition business. So if I could wipe the slate clean and do yoga surf retreats, I would do those, where I would teach people how to surf and teach people yoga and like plan the menu and have these like gorgeous retreats. I don't know.
That's
like
amazing.
In Bali or something.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's what I would do, but it's still in the ethos of like what I do.
I mean, so if you look at your Instagram for even like a second, there's the hashtag Fab4 smoothie.
Mm-hmm.
And
what's that?
You're like, I don't know who my account was hacked. I've seen it on E! News. Busy Phillips is drinking it. Like, it's just like everywhere. Like, honestly, it's everywhere. Even before, it's on accounts that I follow.
Thanks.
So what is it, and why should I be drinking it? And can I drink it while I'm pregnant?
You can. I did. And it really helped me. And I actually just talked to one of my best friends is pregnant, and she'll have had to announce this when this comes out. So it doesn't matter. But she is basically having like toast every morning and was feeling really bad. And it's such a different pregnancy. And I was like, yeah, but in your last pregnancy, you had balanced blood sugar. Like you were having eggs and avocado for breakfast with veggies, or you were having a smoothie and you didn't have a toddler and a business and just grabbing a piece of toast or like a gluten-free muffin from Creation or gluten-free bread or whatever. She's like, you're right. Damn it. So the Fab4 smoothie includes the Fab4. So I'm really not about rules. I'm not about strict diets. I'm not about, unless we need to do an elimination diet. There's nothing out there that felt like a lifestyle to me with structure, but light structure. So the Fab4 is the light structure that I use with my clients. And it's what I want people to eat: 4 things: protein, fat, fiber, and greens, like leafy greens, spinach, kale, could be like herbs like basil, cilantro, just like something green and leafy. And the reasons for that is you have over 8 hunger hormones in your body screaming at you all day. Annie, we're hungry. Annie, let's eat something. Annie. Yeah. Okay. Right. So 8, and each of them are balanced and function optimally based on certain things. So for example, ghrelin is a hunger hormone that is released when your stomach is empty, and when your stomach physically stretches, it stops being released. So that hormone is no longer going to your brain going, eat some food. Let's eat some food. So if you eat something that has fiber and has weight to it, not like I drank a celery juice, I'm full, like something with weight that stretches your stomach, that hormone stops. It's the mechanism. So glucagon, like peptide 1, GLP-1, that's a hormone that when you eat something and it goes into your intestines, when food enters your intestines, it basically is a satiety hormone. It makes you feel full. So, there are just ways that you can make that work, and protein and fat and fiber and leafy greens is sort of a beauty element, a skin element that I added. But those 4 things regulate all those 8 hunger hormones. They give you the best chance to balance your blood sugar and feel full for 4 to 6 hours. And what I was seeing when I saw these people juicing and smoothies and all that, is all sugar. It's all carbohydrates. It's all sugar. It's a date, a banana, acai, granola, honey, regular sweetened nut milks, and they're cute and pretty and beautiful and pink, and that's fine. But they're not full. They're not satisfied. And then they're crashing and they're starving and they're craving. And then they eat bad and they feel bad about themselves. Their blood sugar spikes, they crash, and they want that 3 o'clock chocolate or coffee, and they spike and they crash, and then they beat themselves up. And now all of a sudden their confidence is being affected by their food choices because they've been on a blood sugar roller coaster and they don't know why. And they go, quote unquote, I'll start tomorrow. And then they try to use all this mental willpower once again to make change. And all I was looking to do was give people a tool that would help them start their day, that would regulate their hunger hormones, that would make them feel full, that would be what their body needs. Like, you actually need essential amino acids, which are protein, essential fatty acids, which are fat. You need fiber. Insoluble fiber is what moves things through your colon and detoxifies you. Soluble fiber turns to a gel. It feeds the probiotic bacteria in your gut microbiome. Those probiotic bugs grow and grow and grow, and they eat away and make sure that candida and yeast doesn't overgrow. And then leafy greens, vitamin K, and, just that beauty element of the alkalizing, detoxifying beauty, skin beauty element of leafy greens. I was like, perfect. We'll just give it the Fab Four. Someone wants to make a chocolate protein, almond butter for fat, chia seeds for fiber, a little bit of spinach. You want to blend it up. You want it to taste like a chocolate almond butter cup. Great.
So there's variations of it.
You can make whatever version you want. The Fab Four is there for you to say, I want to be vegan, vegetarian, paleo, keto. Fine. I don't care. But here are 4 things that you should look for on your plate so that you aren't starving in 90 minutes, so that you aren't spiking up and crashing down in 3 hours, so that you don't have cravings for things that you don't want to eat.
What's your favorite version of it? I have to say that there's like a gray version of it. It's like a rich silvery gray. And I'm like, I need to know what's in this. It's so appealing. The color of it.
Oh,
it looks like a milkshake.
Yeah. So, it's probably because I'm using vanilla protein. I could be using like a sunflower butter right now. Before Bash is like sort of eczema thing, it was like almond butter, peanut butter. I use avocado. But anytime you do like a chocolate almond butter, vanilla almond butter, and then you do the flax and the chia, you really like, my smoothies look like the thickness of froyo or ice cream. It is not pourable like a juice.
Yes. That's
not going to make you feel full. And, and sometimes, if I know I'm going to have a salad and broccoli and other leafy greens or green vegetables later in the day, I might do the smoothie without greens. And I have recipes, sort of starter recipes in my book, Body Love, that are without the greens, just to get people going and started. And I just saw a client the other day. I made her a chocolate almond butter one with greens, and then she was sort of dreading it the next day. And I was like, omit the greens, call me back. She omitted the greens, loved it, ate it for the last 5 days. And she's like, I'm down 2 pounds. And I'm like, what are you attributing to that? Because she's so afraid of calories. And my smoothies are not 200 calories. They're like a 500 calorie smoothie. And by the way, that doesn't matter because I'm giving you what turns off hunger, and you're not actually eating everything in the office kitchen.
Yes. I mean, you've got to get the calories in somehow if you want to be a functioning human being. So you might as well get the calories that work for you.
Yeah,
and
the
then
good
create
ones.
Better choices later in the day.
Yeah. So it's just a formula so people know how to balance a smoothie instead of just pouring a bunch of like fruit and quote unquote superfoods in a blender.
Well, I mean, there's so many tips that you can give people, and I'm like sad our engineer always holds up like little fingers when we have a certain amount of minutes left. So I have 2 more questions.
Okay.
And one of them is what, without giving all your secrets away, what is like something that you would tell someone who is listening to this podcast who's like, I have no idea where to start. Like, wait, okay, so I'm doing all these fats. Well, isn't that going to make me fat? And, chocolate and almond butter, like those are the things that I've always put on weight from, right? There's like so much education that goes with this. But what is kind of like that, a little easy tip or maybe some place that you would tell someone to start who has no concept of nutrition? Like what's a baby step into maybe just making things a little easier on yourself?
Well, instead of thinking about what you can't eat or you don't want to eat, I would think about just looking on your plate. Do I have those 4 things? So protein, it's like, it could be chicken, eggs. It could be protein powder in your smoothie. Then look for fat, avocado, almond butter, nuts, seeds, olives, and then look for leafy greens and vegetables. So you're looking for the good things. Don't say like, ooh, is this corn muffin okay? Or is this, piece of fruit okay? Or is this chocolate okay? Or is this wine okay? Like, don't think about that yet. And I will say for most of my clients, if they have no idea what to do and they know nothing about nutrition, I just say, why don't you commit to having this smoothie for the next 2 weeks in the morning? That's it. That's all I want you to do. And, the next thing they ask, the client I was telling you about who we had to omit the greens with because it just wasn't for her, which is totally fine, was, she's feverishly texting me like, well, what workouts should I be doing? I should be doing workouts. And like, should I not be drinking? And like, what time should I go to bed? And I'm like, whoa. We crawl before we walk, before we run. And you don't even have the habit of having like a good first meal. Your first meal is like, hey, I had a sugary coffee from Blue Bottle and now my assistant's asking me what I want Postmates and I'm starving. So I order pizza. I'm like, can we start with the good first meal and how do we get there? So it was funny because I told her to stop. I was like, that's not what we're on right now. We're on the smoothie. We're on the breakfast. It needs to be eggs, avocado, veggies. It needs to be the smoothie. It needs to be a sugar-free chia seed pudding. It needs to be protein, fat, and fiber so that you're full. And then we'll see what happens. And literally it's like, she's lost a couple pounds and she hasn't cut out the alcohol and she hasn't gotten back into the gym and she hasn't not gone to bed, before midnight.
Yep. Absolutely. So I guess my follow-up question is, and you've been all over the place, but what are your what are your favorite restaurants? What are your favorite, brands? I know it gets like a little sponsory, but what are, not just in LA, there's people all over the world listening to this. So like, have there been places in your travels and in California that stick out as your like go-to faves?
Yeah. So when it comes to restaurants, I live and breathe in Brentwood. So I love the Country Mart. I love Farm Shop. I think it's a phenomenal restaurant. I love a Vocresante. People don't know what a Vocresante is, but it is like a little cafe place. They have all organic, pasture raised, great stuff. And it's cool. Apparently LeBron has been there a couple of times too, if you're interested. You can get my Fab Four smoothie at the Earth Bar in Brentwood because I just was going there and creating my own every time. And so now they let you create your own there.
How would you ask for that? You could just say like, I'm looking for a Fab.
Yeah. So at the Brentwood location, they have a sign that says like, build a Fab Four smoothie.
Awesome.
And the WeHo location, because Busy Phillips and like Kelly Sawyer and some of these girls go in there and they go, I'll have the basic shake, add almond butter, add chia, add spinach, and they go vanilla or chocolate. So they go, are you getting Kelly's smoothie? So annoyed. Fine.
Like, yeah, are you?
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever. Brands that I love Primal Kitchen, collagen protein, collagen fuel. That's what I drank throughout my pregnancy. I trust that. When it comes to fiber,
my computer again, we're taking all the notes.
Fiber, chia, flax, acacia fiber. I get that from Now Foods on Amazon. When it comes to nut butters and avocados, that's like if it just says nuts on the side of your nut butter, you're good. I don't have a brand at California avocados. And then when it comes to places I love, I grew up in Orange County and I love being down there in Laguna, Corona del Mar. I haven't been to Big Sur ever. And I was supposed to go for my anniversary and then there was like mudslides and fires and all of these things. And then I was pregnant. And so I cannot wait to get up there. I still can't believe I haven't gone, but I think I'm going to go on a yoga retreat with my sisters when Bash is 6 months. So
awesome.
That's the plan.
Okay. Well, I can't believe how fast like an hour and 15 minutes goes by. And I honestly, I know I say this, but like I do mean it more sometimes than others, but I could talk to you forever. You are a beacon of knowledge, and not just in terms of the factual, tangible nutrition stuff, but life stuff. And I know for a fact that people listening to this podcast, this will be one of the top ones. Thanks. Ever, because it's so rich in all the things that matter. And I honestly can't thank you enough for just showing up in every way, physically, emotionally. I mean, we've run the gamut in terms of topics, and I'm happy that we're ending with us both smiling, although there was such a need, and there always is, a need to have tears and have a place to shed them. So thank you for allowing this to be one of those places.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Be Well by Kelly. Please subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Learn more at BeWellByKelly.com and follow me on Instagram at BeWellByKelly. I would love if you picked up my books, Body Love and Body Love Every Day. They're sold on Amazon and at all major booksellers.